So how was your stay in the Philippines so far, sir?
It's been wonderful. It's been exciting. It's been uplifting. I've really enjoyed myself.
How do you find the PMAP conference, sir?
PMAP conference has been very lively. What's impressed me most is that the average age of these participants are in their 20s and 30s, and really, represent the futures of their company and the futures of the Philippines. So it's been great to be around young people who are so enthusiastic about making a difference with people.
How do you find people management programs being implemented here in the Philippines?
Well, I have a lot to learn about that. I haven't been working here in the Philippines very long, but it's clear, at least from what I hear in the conference, that people management is something that's very important to the Filipinos, and I'm sure is going to become even more important as your economy develops, as your political system evolves, and as people become more comfortable realizing that the future is really in all of its people, and making them productive, making them engaged so they're enthusiastic about what they're doing. That's what makes countries great.
Why is people management important to any enterprise, sir?
Well, it almost goes without saying that you can't get anything done unless people do it. Machines do a certain amount, but people run the machines. And as a result, if you don't have people who understand the whole purpose of what they're doing, if their work doesn't have meaning to them, if they don't realize, as I said in my presentation, that they're building some cathedral, and we're all in our working companies, there's some cathedral, there's some great purpose that that company is trying to achieve. And what are we doing that supports that and makes that real? That is really why people are so important, because it's their efforts that will make that happen, and it's only if they're enthusiastic and engaged can it become the great result that they're looking for.
How can a company or an organization implement an effective people management strategy?
Well, it sounds easy, but it's hard to do. First of all, senior leadership, which starts with the CEO, and even the board of directors to a certain extent supporting the CEO, has to passionately believe that making people as productive and as engaged as they can be is really central. And they have to have an enthusiasm for that aspect of their leadership responsibilities, which of course cover more things than just people management. If they don't have that belief, then honestly nothing much can happen. So as much as the people in this conference are going to enable, are going to in many ways bring the creative ideas, maybe even spark the thinking of their CEOs, ultimately it does start at the top. And that's the biggest challenge, frankly, that everybody in human resources has, is how to get the attention of their senior leaders around what this company can be if it really gets the power of its people unleashed against their strategies. That's the critical thing, and I hope there's ideas that have come out of this that will revolutionize many companies throughout the Philippines.
In the Philippines, an issue among organizations or companies, attrition. People go abroad and find work overseas. How can a company or an organization persuade or let people stay or be happy in the organization, sir?
Well, again, these are very difficult questions you're asking. When the question you have to ask is, well, why are people going overseas? It could be a whole host of reasons. But one thing that can capture people's imaginations is not just the higher income, the more prestigious careers, the sense of foreign adventure that might come from doing that. They have to have a belief that their country is something worth working for, and therefore there's nothing more noble, nothing more exciting than staying in the Philippines and helping build the Philippines into the country and the society that they want to be in, which they are unfortunately looking for elsewhere. Now, that requires that they believe their company, some company in the Philippines really wants to do that and is doing that and wants people who will be able to make that happen. So again, it starts with senior leadership to talk to their people that that's what their company is about, not just making money for the owners. Yes, you make money for the owners, that's essential, but there's bigger things in business than just the narrow purpose of making money. So I hope, after all, many countries have experienced the best and the brightest going overseas looking for things better. If you can do the right things here in the Philippines, like we heard your Secretary of Education or Undersecretary of Education speak about on Wednesday night, I think the Philippines can be a bright, shining example in Asia as a country that is repatriating many of its best and brightest, because the excitement of building what's even more meaningful to them exists at home.
What is an ideal case study in abroad, globally, for a Filipino enterprise to follow in terms of people management?
Yeah, in terms of people management, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of my experience is with multinationals, and I'm trying to think of national companies that have somehow emulated the excitement that multinationals seem to have for many people. You know, that's a challenge to give you an example that you can follow. I think you have to create your own examples. To be perfectly honest, there's nothing like, sure, you can say, well, we're like Citibank, or we're like GE, or we're like PepsiCo, or we're like Colgate-Palmolive, or some other company that is very attractive to people, or we're like some Silicon Valley, Google, or Oracle, or what. But I think you have to have your own examples with your own industries. And it's absolutely possible. There is nothing special about Google, about the product. What's Google? It's just how to find information on the web. By itself, that is as boring as anything. It's like going to a dictionary or going to an encyclopedia. Is that exciting? No. What makes Google exciting? It's the way it's managed. Apple, it's a cell phone. It's no different from Nokia or Samsung or any other cell phone. What makes it exciting? It's the way the company is run. The way each of those companies run is unique to them. There's no cookie cutter pattern. Now, you can give examples, you can get ideas, as Pablo Picasso said, as our speakers have said, the greatest artists steal from others. Filipino companies need to steal in a metaphorical sense, not in a real sense, ideas for how to make their companies as interesting and as exciting as any around the world. It can be done because any company essentially is no different from another in terms of the fundamental product they're delivering. So that's what you need to find the inspiration and the greatness in yourself, in your company, and not think that you can model yourself after some other pattern just like that.
My last question, sir. What advice or what can you give our companies here into implementing what you want, what you see the companies or people need to really progress in terms of people management?
I think two things. Number one, I think there needs to be a stronger belief in each person in themselves. One great thing about certainly the best companies I'm familiar with is that each person in the company has a strong belief that their ideas are worthwhile and need to be considered and heard. And this means whether you're 22 years old and just out of school, or whether you're 45 years old and a vice president. It doesn't matter. Everybody believes their ideas are just as good as the CEO's or the chief of this or the VP of that. I think that needs to be strengthened. I think in the Philippines, I've sensed this feeling that younger people are too respectful of the idea that their seniors have the ideas and they just have to figure out how to follow. That's number one. Number two, and this is a slightly different modification on the theme, I think you need to start believing that you can create your own excitement. I mean, I listened to company CEOs in the last few days, like the CEO of Primer, the CEO of the water company. I'm sorry, I forget his name right now. But I've heard them talk about their companies with such enthusiasm for the innovative ideas they're implementing that I think companies need to believe they can do it. It's absolutely possible, and they just have to trust themselves to make it happen.
Thank you very much, sir, for the time. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.